My husband's mistress told me she would be taking my place, but she was devastated when she learned she's not the only one. And now, she's asking for my advice on how to handle it. 4 months ago, my husband practically begged me to take a job at his company. He said it would be amazing for us to spend more time together during the day, that we could have lunch dates and drive home together. I thought it was the sweetest thing he'd ever done. I applied, got the position, and honestly thought it was one of the best decisions we'd made as a couple. The extra money was great, but seeing him throughout the day made me feel like we were dating again. Last Tuesday, I was loading groceries into my car in the parking lot when this woman from accounting approached me. She looked nervous, kept glancing around like she was being watched. Her hands were literally shaking. She said we needed to talk about my husband and Samantha from sales, that everyone in the office knew about it except me, that she felt terrible watching me smile at him in the hallways while he was sneaking around behind my back. I actually laughed. Told her she must be confused. My husband would never do that to me. We'd been together for 12 years, but something about the way she looked at me made my stomach drop. That night, I casually brought it up to him. Just mentioned that someone said something weird at work. I expected him to be angry, to be confused, to defend himself. He didn't even try to deny it. He just sat there on our couch, the one we picked out together, and said, "I need excitement. You're my wife and I love you, but she's different. She makes me feel young again." I sat there in complete shock. He kept talking, saying, every man needs something new and exciting, that it didn't mean anything, that I should understand because we've been together so long. I didn't cry, didn't yell. I just stood up, went to our bedroom, and called a divorce lawyer, filed the paperwork the next morning. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. 2 days after I served him the papers, I heard a knock on my door. It was around 7 in the evening. I opened it to find Samantha standing there, the woman from sales, the mistress. Her mascara was running down her face in thick black streams. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. Her eyes were puffy and red. She asked if we could talk. I should have slammed the door in her face, but I was curious, so I let her stand on my porch while she explained through sobs. Turns out my husband had been telling her for months that he was leaving me for her, that I was cold and distant, that our marriage was dead, that she was the love of his life, and he was just waiting for the right time. He'd been making her feel special, chosen. Then 3 days ago, she found a text on his phone while he was in the shower from Kristen in HR. Same exact messages he'd been sending to Samantha. The pet names, the promises, everything. She confronted him right there in his apartment, and he completely broke down, started crying, begging her not to leave. Then he admitted there was also Andrea from accounting and 2 other women from different departments that Samantha didn't even know the names of. She stood on my porch, literally sobbing into her hands, asking me how I dealt with it, how I stayed so calm at work, how I managed to keep showing up every day knowing what he was doing, if I had any advice for how to confront him. I just stared at her for a long minute. This woman who'd been sleeping with my husband for over a year, who thought she was special, who actually believed his lies about me being the problem. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You want my advice? Stop being the other woman to 4 other women." I was about to shut the door when she blurted out, "He's been stealing from you." I froze. "What are you talking about?" She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. "He told me he was taking me to Paris next month, showed me the hotel booking, everything. But when I saw his credit card statement, it was your name on the card." My heart started racing. "He's been using your accounts to fund everything with us, all of us." I felt dizzy. Hotels, dinners, gifts. He even bought me a $3,000 necklace last month. She scrolled through screenshots. But here's the thing. When I looked closer at the bank statements he accidentally sent me instead of Kristen, I saw he's been moving massive amounts somewhere else entirely. There's over $180,000 missing from accounts with your name on them. And based on these transfer dates, it's been going on for almost 3 years. I couldn't breathe. Literally couldn't catch my breath. My hands went numb, and I had to grip the doorframe just to stay upright. The woman who'd been sleeping with my husband for over a year was standing on my porch telling me he'd stolen nearly $200,000 from me, from our joint accounts. Money I'd worked for, saved. Money that was supposed to be for our future. "Show me," I said, my voice coming out way calmer than I felt. Samantha hesitated, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I don't want to make things worse." "Worse?" I almost laughed. "My husband's been screwing at least 4 women from his office and apparently financing it with my money. I think we're past worse." She handed me her phone, and I scrolled through the screenshots she'd taken, bank statements with my name on them, transfers to accounts I'd never seen before. $5,000 here, $8,000 there, $15,000 to something called Coastal Holdings LLC. The dates went back almost 3 years, just like she said. He sent these to you? I asked. By accident. He meant to send them to Kristen. I think he was showing off or something, I don't know. But when I started asking questions, he got really defensive and told me to mind my own business. That's when I knew something was really wrong. I looked at her standing there on my porch in her work clothes, mascara streaked down, her cheeks looking absolutely devastated. A month ago, I would have hated her. Right now, she was the only person who'd actually told me the truth. Come inside, I said. She looked surprised. Are you sure? No, but do it anyway. So yeah, that's how I ended up sitting at my kitchen table at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, with my husband's mistress, drinking wine straight from the bottle, and looking at evidence that my husband of 12 years wasn't just a cheater. He was also a thief. Samantha pulled up more files on her phone, screenshots of conversations where he'd mentioned trips, gifts, dinners at expensive restaurants, all of it paid for with cards that had my name on them. Did he ever mention what this Coastal Holdings thing was? I asked. She shook her head. No, I asked, but he changed the subject really fast, said it was just boring investment stuff. I grabbed my laptop and started searching. Coastal Holdings LLC had been registered 2.5 years ago. The registered agent, my husband, the address, a P.O. box I'd never heard of. Oh my God, Samantha whispered, looking at the screen. He created a fake company? Looks like it. I kept digging. Tax records showed the company had received over $200,000 in transfers. None of it had been reported on our joint tax returns. He's been laundering money through this thing. Samantha started crying again. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any of this. He told me you guys were separated, that you were just roommates basically, that the divorce was almost final. We weren't separated. We were fine. At least I thought we were. I poured more wine into a coffee mug. How long have you been seeing him? 14 months. She looked down at her hands. He was so charming at first, you know? He'd bring me coffee in the morning, remember little things I mentioned. Made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. Yeah, he's good at that. I really thought he loved me. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. He's just really good at lying. I took another sip of wine. Who's Kristen? And Andrea. Kristen works in HR. I don't know her that well, but she's young, maybe 24. Andrea's in accounting. She's been there for like 5 years. Samantha scrolled through her phone. And then there are 2 other women he mentioned, but I don't even know their names. He just called them the blonde from marketing and that girl who works on the 3rd floor. 5 women. My husband had been juggling 5 different affairs while stealing money from me and probably the company. The man I trusted with everything. The man I'd married in a small ceremony at his parents' farm because he said he wanted something intimate and meaningful. We need to contact the others, I said. What? Kristen and Andrea. We need to tell them what's going on. If he's doing this to us, he's doing it to them too. Samantha looked terrified. I don't know if that's a good idea. He's going to be so angry. Let him be angry. He stole $180,000 from me, Samantha. He deserves to be exposed. She was quiet for a long moment, just staring at her phone. Then she said, okay, I'll message Kristen right now. So that's how it started. Samantha sent Kristen a text saying they needed to talk urgently about my husband. Within 10 minutes, Kristen called her back, and I could hear her voice through the phone, high-pitched and panicked. Put her on speaker, I said. Samantha did. Kristen, I'm here with his wife. We know about everything. There was a long pause. His wife? Yeah, she knows about you, about me, about Andrea. We need to meet tomorrow and compare notes because this is way bigger than we thought. Oh my God, Kristen's voice cracked. Oh my God, I can't believe this. He told me he was divorced. He showed me papers and everything. They were fake, I said. We're still legally married. I just filed last week. I'm going to be sick. We could hear her breathing hard through the phone. He's been lying this whole time. I trusted him. I let him move into my apartment last month. He what? Samantha and I said at the same time. He said his lease was up and he needed a place to crash for a few weeks while he looked for something new. He's been staying with me for almost a month now. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My husband had been living with another woman, while still married to me, while still coming home to our house twice a week to grab clothes and check the mail. Does he have keys to your place? I asked. Yeah, why? Change your locks, tomorrow, first thing, and we all need to meet, all of us. Tomorrow after work. Kristen agreed, and Samantha messaged Andrea next. Andrea's response was even worse. She'd been seeing him for 2 years, longer than any of us. She thought they were going to get married. He'd been telling her I was sick, that I had some terminal illness, and he was staying with me out of obligation until I passed away. I'm not sick. I've never been sick. The man had literally told his mistress I was dying, just so she'd stick around. We set up a meeting for the next day at a coffee shop far from the office, neutral ground. All 4 of us would sit down and figure out exactly what we were dealing with. That night, I barely slept. I kept going over everything in my head. The late nights he said were work trips. The weekends he said he needed to visit his sick mother. The times he said he was golfing with clients. All of it had been lies. And the money? Oh God, the money. I pulled up our joint bank accounts on my phone and started going through transactions line by line. $3,000 to a jewelry store I'd never heard of. $5,500 to a hotel in Miami during a weekend he said he was at a sales conference. $2,200 to a restaurant where we'd never eaten together. $800 to Victoria's Secret, but I'd never received anything from there. It went on and on and on. By 3 a.m., I'd found over $60,000 in charges just from the past 8 months, and that was just what I could see in our joint accounts. There was no telling what he'd hidden in accounts I didn't know about. The next day at work, I avoided him completely. Took the stairs instead of the elevator, ate lunch at my desk, left through a side exit. I couldn't look at him without wanting to scream. At 5:30, I drove to the coffee shop. Samantha was already there, sitting in the back corner looking pale and exhausted. Andrea showed up 5 minutes later. She was older than I expected, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like she'd been crying. "I can't believe this is happening," were the first words out of her mouth. Kristen arrived last. She was young, just like Samantha said, with blonde hair and wide blue eyes that were red and swollen from crying. She sat down without saying anything and just stared at the table. For a few minutes, nobody spoke. We were just 4 women sitting in a coffee shop, all of us betrayed by the same man. "So," I finally said, "let's figure out what we're dealing with." We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Samantha shared the screenshots of the bank statements and transfers. Andrea admitted he'd been taking money from her too, about $30,000 over the past 2 years, for what he called business investments that never materialized. Kristen said he'd been using her credit cards to book hotels and flights, promising to pay her back but never did. And then Kristen mentioned something that made all of us go quiet. He has another apartment downtown. He told me it was his, that he owned it before we met. But now I'm wondering if that's even true. "What's the address?" I asked. She gave it to me and I looked it up on my phone. The apartment was in a building I'd never heard of, in a neighborhood I'd never been to. The lease was under his name. The cosigner, my forged signature. "He used my name to rent an apartment I didn't know existed," I said, my voice shaking. "That's identity theft. That's fraud." "There's more," Andrea said quietly. She pulled out a folder she'd brought with her. "I work in accounting, remember? I started noticing some weird things about 6 months ago. Invoices for vendors we don't actually use. Purchase orders for equipment that never arrived. I didn't think much of it at first. But after yesterday, I went back through the files." She spread papers out on the table between us. "He's been creating fake vendor accounts using stolen employee information and routing company funds through them. I found at least 8 different accounts so far. The total amount is somewhere around $400,000. The table went silent. We all just stared at the papers in front of us. "He's embezzling from the company," Samantha whispered. "Yeah," Andrea said. "And if I found this much in just a few hours, there's probably way more hidden somewhere else. We have to report this," I said. "To who? HR? His uncle owns the company?" Kristen shook her head. "They're not going to believe us." "No, not to the company. To the police. This is fraud. This is theft. This is way beyond an affair." We sat there for another hour making a plan. Samantha would forward me all the screenshots she had. Andrea would copy the financial documents from work. Kristen would get me the rental agreement from the downtown apartment, and I would compile everything and take it to the authorities. But first, we needed to see what else we could find. That's when I suggested we check out the apartment. "Are you serious?" Kristen asked. "Dead serious. He's at work right now. We have a few hours before he'd even think about going there. Let's see what he's hiding." So yeah, the 4 of us drove to this apartment building downtown. Kristen used the key he'd given her, and we walked into what can only be described as a complete double life. The apartment was nice, way nicer than it should have been. Expensive furniture, huge TV, artwork on the walls. There were photos of him with women I didn't recognize. Not us. 2 other women, the ones Samantha mentioned, the blonde from marketing and whoever worked on the 3rd floor. "There are more," Andrea breathed. "We found their stuff too. Clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom. One of them had left a toothbrush in a pink holder by the sink. Post-it notes on the fridge with little messages. 'Can't wait to see you tomorrow,' and 'thanks for last night,' with heart emojis." Samantha found his laptop in the bedroom. It was open, still logged in. We looked at each other for about 2 seconds before she started scrolling through it. The messages were worse than I imagined. Hundreds of texts to different women, all with the same lines. "You're the only one who understands me. I've never felt this way before. I'm going to leave her for you." Copy and paste lies to 7 different women. And then we found the financial documents. Spreadsheets tracking every dollar he'd stolen, account information for offshore banks. Flight confirmations to the Cayman Islands dated 3 weeks from now. He's planning to run, I said. Holy shit, Kristen whispered. He's going to take everything and disappear. We took photos of everything, every document, every message, every piece of evidence we could find. Then we got the hell out of there before he came home. That night, I could barely think straight. The man I'd married, the man I'd shared a bed with for over a decade, was a con artist, a thief. He'd stolen from me, from these other women, from his company, and he'd been planning to vanish in 3 weeks with all of it. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to scream at him, to make him admit what he'd done, but I knew that would only tip him off. He'd hide the evidence, move the money, disappear early. So instead, I called his boss. Well, technically, I called the CEO, his uncle, but I didn't mention the affairs. I pretended to be the concerned wife who'd stumbled across some suspicious documents while cleaning out the garage. I showed him just enough of the embezzlement evidence to get his attention, the fake vendor accounts, and the offshore transfers. I don't know what this is, I said, trying to sound confused and innocent. But it looks like company money is going places it shouldn't be. I thought you should know before it becomes a problem. His uncle looked at the documents for a long time, his face getting redder and redder. Where did you get these? I found them in a box in our garage. I think he accidentally brought them home. I'm going to look into this. Can you leave these with me? Of course. I'm happy to help however I can. He thanked me and said he'd be in touch. As I was leaving, he said, "Has your husband seemed stressed lately? Acting different? Not that I've noticed, but then again, I've been working a lot. Maybe I haven't been paying enough attention." I left his office and went back to my car where Samantha was waiting. She'd taken the day off to help me coordinate everything. "Did he buy it?" she asked. "Hook, line, and sinker. He's going to launch an internal audit. Hopefully they'll find all of it before he has a chance to cover his tracks." "What about the affair stuff?" "We save that for later. Right now we need to catch him on the financial crimes. Once that's locked down, we expose the rest." The next few days were torture. I had to act normal around him, make dinner, watch TV together, pretend everything was fine. He didn't suspect a thing. He even mentioned the trip to the Cayman Islands, said it was a work retreat, asked if I wanted to come. I smiled and said I couldn't get time off work. He seemed relieved. That weekend, he announced he was taking me on a romantic getaway to fix things between us, said he'd been neglecting me, that he wanted to make it right, booked a trip to this beach resort for the following weekend. I looked at the confirmation email he showed me. Then I checked my own email and found a completely different reservation. He wasn't taking me anywhere. The romantic getaway was actually his escape plan to the Cayman Islands. He'd booked a one-way ticket. I acted excited, told him how sweet he was, how much I loved him, how this was exactly what we needed. The whole time, I wanted to throw up. Monday morning, Samantha texted the group chat. "He's presenting to the executives today at 2. Big meeting about quarterly projections. Everyone who's anyone will be there." Perfect. Andrea had spent the weekend putting together a comprehensive file of everything he'd stolen. Bank statements, fake invoices, offshore account information, screenshots of his messages to all of us, photos from the apartment, everything. We met outside the office building at 1:45. Me, Samantha, Kristen, Andrea, and 2 women I'd never met before. The blonde from marketing was named Jenna. The woman from the 3rd floor was Nicole. When we'd reached out to them with evidence, they'd both been devastated. Both had believed they were the only ones. Both had been helping him hide money. "Everyone ready?" I asked. They all nodded. At 1:58, we walked into the building together. Security tried to stop us, but Andrea had her employee badge and she convinced them we were there for the presentation. We took the elevator to the executive floor and walked straight into the conference room where my husband was setting up his PowerPoint. He looked up and saw us, all 6 of us, standing there in the doorway. His face went completely white. "What are you doing here?" he stammered. "We're here for your presentation," I said calmly. The executives were already seated around the table. His uncle, the CEO, the CFO, the head of HR, and several board members. They all looked confused. "I don't understand," the CEO said. "Oh, this will just take a minute," Samantha said. She had a USB drive in her hand. "Do you mind if we use the projector?" My husband tried to protest, but Andrea was already connecting her laptop to the system. The screen behind him flickered to life, and there it was. Every message, every lie, photos of him with each of us, bank statements showing the stolen money, screenshots of the offshore accounts, the rental agreement for the secret apartment with my forged signature, flight confirmation to the Cayman Islands dated 12 days from now. The executives watched in complete silence. My husband tried to speak, but nothing came out. He just stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "This man," I said, pointing at him, "has been systematically defrauding this company for over 3 years. He created fake vendor accounts using stolen employee information and has embezzled approximately $400,000 in company funds. He's also committed identity theft, forgery, and financial fraud against me personally. And he was planning to flee the country in less than 2 weeks with all of it. This is insane," my husband finally managed to say. "She's lying. They're all lying. This is some kind of..." "Is this your signature?" The CEO held up one of the fake vendor invoices. "Yes, but..." "And is this your account?" The CFO pointed to one of the offshore transfers on the screen. My husband's mouth snapped shut. "Security," the CEO said quietly. "Please escort him out of the building." 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. My husband looked at me with pure hatred in his eyes. "You're going to regret this," he hissed as they grabbed his arms. "No," I said. "You're going to regret thinking you could get away with it." They dragged him out. The conference room erupted in chaos. Executives were yelling, phones were ringing. The CFO was already calling the company's lawyers. The CEO pulled me aside. "I'm sorry," he said. "I had no idea this was happening. If I'd known..." "You couldn't have known. He's very good at hiding things. We'll cooperate fully with any investigation. And obviously, we'll be pressing charges. Thank you." I handed him a flash drive with copies of everything. "This is all the evidence we've compiled. Bank records, forged documents, communications, everything. My lawyer will be in touch about the identity theft and personal fraud. But I wanted you to have this first." He took it with shaking hands. "I'm truly sorry for what you've been through." I nodded and walked out. The other women followed me. We didn't say anything until we got to the parking lot. Then Jenna started laughing. It was the slightly hysterical sound that made the rest of us start laughing too. We stood there in the parking lot, 6 women who'd been betrayed by the same man, laughing until we cried. "Did you see his face?" Nicole gasped between laughs. "He looked like he was going to pass out," Kristen said. "Good," Andrea said firmly. "He deserves worse." We all exchanged numbers before leaving, created a group chat called Survivors Club, made plans to get dinner together once the dust settled. I went home and changed all the locks, installed security cameras at every entrance, backed up all my evidence to 3 different cloud services. That night around 11 p.m., he showed up. I watched him on the security camera, drunk and stumbling up to the door. He tried his key. Obviously, it didn't work. He started pounding on the door, screaming for me to let him in. "Open the fucking door! This is my house too." I recorded everything. His threats, his slurred words, the way he kicked the door so hard I thought it might break. After 20 minutes, I called the police. They arrived and took him away for public intoxication and trespassing. But I wasn't done with the recording. I sent it to his parents, his brother, every single person in his contact list, along with screenshots of what he'd done, the affairs, the theft, everything. I wanted everyone to know exactly who he was. His mother called me the next morning crying. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry." "Did you know?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time. "Not about you, but this isn't the first time he's done something like this. 10 years ago, before you met him, he did the same thing to another woman. Stole her money, had multiple affairs, tried to run away. We helped him cover it up. We paid her off to keep quiet. We thought he'd changed. We thought marrying you had fixed him." I felt sick. "You knew he was capable of this and you didn't warn me?" "We thought it was in the past. We thought, oh God, I'm so sorry. This is our fault. We should have told you." "Yes, you should have." She started crying harder. "Is there anything we can do? Anything at all?" "Actually, yes. He's been moving money through offshore accounts. I need to know where else he might have hidden it. Did he ever mention gambling, investments, anything like that?" She hesitated, then said, "He has a gambling problem. Started about 5 years ago. He plays online poker on these sketchy international sites. Lost thousands and thousands of dollars. He came to us for money once, but we refused. Told him he had to figure it out himself." "Do you know which sites?" "No, but he mentioned owing money to some very dangerous people he met through the games. He was terrified of them." "Perfect." I thanked her and hung up. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I looked up who he owed money to, found the online poker communities he was part of, created an anonymous account, and started asking questions about unpaid debts. Turns out my husband owed a lot of people a lot of money, and these weren't the kind of people who forgot about debts. Within a day, I had names and contact information. I sent them everything: his location, his assets, where he'd been hiding money, all of it. Let them collect what he owed. Meanwhile, Samantha called me crying again. "He showed up at my apartment," she sobbed. "He's saying you manipulated all of us, that you turned us against him. He wants me to tell everyone we lied about everything." "Did he threaten you?" "Not exactly, but he kept saying he loves me and he was going to leave you for real this time. He said if I really cared about him, I'd help him prove you're lying." "Can you get him to say that again? On recording?" "What?" "Invite him back. Tell him you believe him, that you'll help him, but record everything he says." She was quiet for a moment. "Okay, I can do that." 2 hours later, she called me back. I got it, she said. Everything. He admitted to forging your signature on the apartment lease. He admitted to creating the fake vendor accounts. He even admitted to planning to run away with the money. He thought I was on his side, so he just kept talking. Send it to me immediately. She did. The recording was gold. His voice clear as day, admitting to every single crime we'd accused him of, bragging about how smart he was, how he'd almost gotten away with it, how he would have been in the Cayman Islands by now if his bitch wife hadn't figured it out. I took the recording straight to the bank, filed an identity theft report with every single forged document and transaction. They froze all his accounts immediately, started the process to get my money back. By the end of the week, $180,000 was back in my personal account. The bank confirmed he'd opened 3 credit cards in my name, totaling another $45,000 in debt I'd never seen. They closed the cards, removed the debt from my credit report, and flagged his social security number for fraud. He was drowning now. No money, no job, criminal charges pending, and dangerous people looking for him. But he still wasn't done trying. He created a fake Facebook account using a mutual friend's name, started messaging me, pretending to be someone else, asking what I knew about the situation with my husband. Was I going to press charges? Had I talked to the police? What evidence did I have? I knew it was him. The writing style, the questions, the desperation. So I played along, told my friend I was overwhelmed, that I didn't know what to do, that I was thinking about just letting it go and moving on. He took the bait, told me that was probably for the best, that dragging this out would only hurt me, that I should just accept the divorce and move forward with my life. I agreed, said I'd think about it. Then I forwarded every single message from the fake account to his creditors, the company's legal team, and the bank's fraud department. Proof that he was trying to manipulate me and interfere with the investigation. Proof that he knew exactly what he'd done and was trying to cover it up. 3 days later, I got a call from a detective. My husband had been arrested trying to board a flight at the airport. His passport had been flagged. He tried to use a fake ID to get through security. He's in custody now, the detective said. We'd like you to come down to the station to give a formal statement. I did. Spent 4 hours going through everything with them. Showed them every piece of evidence, every document, every recording. They took copies of everything. This is one of the most comprehensive fraud cases I've ever seen, the detective said. You basically did our entire investigation for us. I wanted to make sure there was no way he could talk his way out of this. He won't. With everything you've given us, he's looking at serious prison time. Multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, forgery. He's done. I left the police station feeling lighter than I had in months. It was over. He was caught. He was going to face real consequences for what he'd done. That night, I got texts from all 6 women. They'd heard about the arrest. They wanted to celebrate. We met at a bar downtown, ordered champagne, toasted to freedom, to justice, to the fact that we'd survive. I can't believe we actually did it, Jenna said. We didn't just do it, Andrea said, raising her glass. We destroyed him. To destroying him, Kristen echoed. We all clinked glasses and drank, and yeah, it felt good, really good. The next few weeks were a blur of court dates, lawyer meetings, and paperwork. My husband tried to make bail, but his family refused to help him. His mother called me to apologize again, said they were done covering for him. The company filed criminal charges for the embezzlement. I filed charges for identity theft and fraud. The bank filed charges for financial crimes. The prosecutor said he was looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. His lawyer tried to make a plea deal, but I refused. I wanted this to go to trial. I wanted everyone to hear what he'd done. At the preliminary hearing, all 6 of us showed up, sat in the front row, stared at him the entire time. He couldn't even look at us. The judge denied bail, said he was a flight risk. My husband's face crumpled and he started crying right there in the courtroom. I felt nothing. The trial was set for 3 months later. In the meantime, I started rebuilding my life, got a new job at a different company. With a way better salary, moved into a smaller apartment that was just mine, started therapy to work through everything that had happened. The other women and I stayed in touch. We'd have dinner every few weeks, check in with each other, make sure everyone was doing okay. We'd form this weird sort of support group, bonded by the shared trauma of being conned by the same man. And honestly, we were all doing better than we'd ever been. Samantha got promoted at work. Kristen moved to a new city for a fresh start. Andrea started dating someone new, a good guy who treated her right. Jenna went back to school to finish her degree. Nicole started her own business. And me, I was free, truly free, for the first time in years. The trial came and went. He was found guilty on all counts, sentenced to 18 years in prison. The judge called him a predator who systematically targeted and exploited vulnerable women and said he deserved every year of that sentence. I watched him get led away in handcuffs, still felt nothing. But as I walked out of the courthouse with the other 5 women beside me, I felt something else. Pride, satisfaction, relief. We'd done it. We'd taken him down together. Make sure to click on the screen to watch other stories.